Joining me now in the studio is Ambassador Paulo Roberto França. He is Brazil's Consul General in Istanbul. Joining us from Rio de Janeiro is Jurema Werneck. She is the Executive Director of Amnesty International Brazil. And also from Rio, Erick Omena de Melo. He is an analyst and researcher specializing in Brazilian affairs. Thanks all so much for speaking to us. Ambassador, let me begin with you. Was there no other way to do this? Was there no other way to bring security to the city other than bringing in the military?
It's a pleasure to be with you here. The situation in Rio was almost at collapse point. The governor of Rio made a statement saying that he was not able to handle the public security of the city, and he asked for assistance. The numbers of violence in Rio have increased scarily. Just to give you an idea, in 2008, more than 24 policemen have been dead, have been killed. In 2015, more than 40 have been killed, and this was increasing in the last years. At the same time, the situation of killings and the insecurity of the population, the honest citizens, was at the border of, as I said, collapse.
Okay.
People are feeling this sense of lack of security, lack of safety, and of course the government had to interfere, had to intervene, and has intervened in a partial way. Okay. It's a federal intervention, and it's aimed exclusively at security.
Okay, Jurema, there were no other options but to get the military involved. Is that true?
Of course it was. We do need to have more option, and we need an explanation from the federal government and also from state government why they are not applying for these other options. They announced last year a national plan, national public security plan, that we didn't see in reality. They don't use it as a tool for changes, produce changes in the public security. And we don't understand why they are applying for this extreme and inadequate measure that is the federal intervention. Yes, it's true that the people here are in fear. It's true that public security situation is really bad, but it's also true that the federal government and the state government, they have the tools for deal with it in a daily basis, not applying for an extreme and an inadequate measure.
Okay. Erick, let me ask you if you believe the extraordinary circumstances in Rio justify these extraordinary measures of this military intervention, and whether or not, what will be the price that civilians are paying in Rio?
Yeah, good question. I think, first of all, are these circumstances really that exceptional? Because the data about violence in Brazil shows that actually Rio is just the 10th most violent state actually in Brazil compared to the other 27 states. So we have, for instance, places like Sergipe, Rio Grande do Norte, Alagoas, Pará, many others that the federal government is not even thinking of intervening. So this is a very strange situation where not even close to the most violent state is being intervened by the federal state. But you also ask about the civilian price, you know. These are areas that are going to be under intervention. These areas are favelas, basically, in Rio. That's where most of the local drug gangs are. But the fact is, there are also lots of people living there. And these people, they have nothing to do with the drug gangs, and they are the vast majority of the population of the areas. And they are not feeling safe about this. We had other previous experiences like that, other interventions. So the military was sent to the favelas like Maré and Complexo do Alemão and Rocinha several times before. And the results were never truly understood and never truly assessed by the government or by specialists in general, you know.
Okay.
So just to give you a data, one grassroots organization, local organization of Maré, one of the main favelas, complex of favelas in Rio. The Redes da Maré, the organization, they conducted a survey with favela dwellers in 2015 when the military occupied the favela. And they asked them about their views on the occupation. More than 75% of the people didn't think that it was good for them. 70% of people didn't think that they were safer after the occupation. So we first need to assess what has been done in the past, you know, to then do something much more precise and much more effective now.
So according to the studies then that Erick is citing, people who were living in fear do not feel safer because of this military intervention. In fact, they feel less safe. But please explain, if this is indeed true, why would there be a military intervention in the state of Rio when it is not the most dangerous or violent area in the country? There are apparently 10 more areas that are in more need of intervention than Rio.
Let me first dwell with one issue which I think is very important. The federal intervention is fully constitutional. There are articles, there are provisions
we
in the Constitution.
haven't debated that. They're just asking why. Whether it's constitutional or not is beside.
But Mrs. Jurema has said that it was debated, and I think that we have to stress this fact. It's very constitutional, and there are many people that are supporting this initiative. The fact is that, in general, people are in need of feeling more safer in Rio. There are many different organisms, there are different NGOs that have supported this federal intervention because it has reached a point in terms of lack of security that honest citizens do not feel safe. They do not feel safe to go to their jobs, children to go to school. There have been killings of stray bullets that have happened in Rio. And you ask me why Rio and why not tackling other states. The fact is that Rio is the window of Brazil.
It's the highest profile.
Rio is very important. Rio is a powerhouse in terms of culture. Rio is a powerhouse in terms even economically and in the production of creative knowledge in Brazil. So I think that the fear that we have, and I think it's a fear that many Brazilians share, is the fact that this plague is spreading up. The president referred to it as a metastasis. It's going from Rio and it's spreading up to other states. I think that the initiative has support. The army will work together with the police in dealing with security.
Before we go much further, I just wanted to get Erick's response to that. I mean, Erick, is that justification enough for making Rio a priority in this fight?
Yeah. Well, I think this discourse tells a lot about what's going on, because it's all about image, it's all about media, because if Rio is not even close to being the most violent state in Brazil, and if it's just because it's seen as the powerhouse, as the cultural hub of Brazil, so it means that it's a matter of image. It's a matter of how people inside and outside Brazil see Brazil. So, so this is the proof that we have a lot of issues to deal with. And I think this is related also to the political situation, the current political situation, because President Temer has broken the lowest record of approval ratings ever, at least since the end of the dictatorship. He's got to the lowest point of 3% of people approving his government. And he's been trying to pass several unpopular laws, and he knows that. And it got to a point that he needed some fresh support from the population, and he knows that security is one of the key issues. That's why he's doing this intervention. He's doing this intervention to try to get his approval ratings up somehow, was trying to pass all the unpopular demand laws.
Let me let the ambassador respond to that. Is Temer just trying to look tough on crime to boost his ratings?
Of course not. No? The president is very worried, as all Brazilian citizens, about the situation.
I see.
He has honestly been very courageous and very determined to initiate this operation, this intervention. And I think that it's not just a question of image. It's a question of the second most important city, the second most important state in Brazil, economically, in terms of culture, as I mentioned. So it's very important. The fact that there are other states, other cities that have similar problems is something that can be tackled later on. But Rio is, at this point, strategic.
Okay, Jurema, do you accept that Rio should be a priority? And realistically then, what can be done if not sending in the military?
Actually, here in Rio, they are applying for military actions since 2008. And Amnesty International has documented it and reported on that. And what we saw is that increased the human rights violation inside communities, especially inside the favelas. Yes, Rio can be a priority, but for us, human rights can be a priority. Not only the human rights of people in Rio, but of people from all countries. I mean, we have the right of public security. We have the right to see and know effective plan on public security as well as other public policies. But what we are seeing is not that. There's no plan. They are always bringing the military to present what they are presenting. They are presenting nothing. What we can see is that the government launched something that they know exactly what it is. They announced something that is nothing. They had, after this intervention, they had the tools. They had the tools to do the things, to do public security, to do public policies, but they were not using it. And why they are applying for this right now? We don't understand. We need an answer right now, because the people in Rio, as the same the people in other states, they need an answer about effectiveness of public security. And we need to change the premise. We need to change the idea of war. They are bringing the army. We are not in war. We need to change the idea of war on drugs. We need to put their prevention. We need to put their public policy to develop the condition of living of the people there. We don't need more guns. We already know more guns means more death. We don't want this.
Okay, Ambassador, I'll let you respond quickly, if you can.
Yeah, I think that we have to look into the question of human rights broadly and in a balanced way. What's happening now in Rio is a violation of human rights of the honest citizen. That's what's happening. You know, people are not safe to go out in the streets. We have seen scenes of tourists being beaten in the streets. This is something that has to be coped with. And this is something that the army, in this intervention, together with the police, together with the instruments of public security, is going to deal with. Of course, we have to do much more than that. This is the first stage, and this is an action that, as the president determined, is an action extreme. And it's, in the short run, this is what has to be done, and was asked even by state authorities. But then we have to invest much more. We have to invest in intelligence. We have to invest in education. This is a very important aspect that has to be dealt with. Unfortunately, authorities of the state have not done enough, you know, to cope with these different areas, social areas, that need to be tackled in order that violence be finished, ended.
Erick, I mean, you've explained well your cynicism. Okay, Jurema, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add that, yes, the state authorities had the responsibility to invest in public security and also in other public policy. But the federal government did the same responsibility, and they never presented something coherent. They never presented anything that effectively changed the living condition of the people. I agree that violence is against the human rights, but I agree also that we cannot sacrifice more human rights, justifying that we are doing something to prevent or to protect the human rights. This federal intervention is against, is worrisome because they can't attack more human rights. We can create a better, we can create a situation to down deeper the human rights of the people when we cannot accept it.
Okay. I mean, Erick, I'm going to give you a final word then because unfortunately we're running out of time. But I mean, at the core of what you're saying is basically your cynicism, re the motives of the government here for intervening in this way, particularly in Rio. For you, it's about protecting an image and protecting the wealth of people in the city. And if that is the only then how do you keep people in the favelas in Rio safe?
Well, this is definitely not about keeping the favelas safe. I mean, the people in favelas safe. This is something for middle-class audience who feels that they are going to be safer because the army is in the favelas. But actually, again, as I said, and as Jurema said, it happened lots of time before. At the end of the day, the ones who are suffering are the ones who live in the favelas, who are being targeted by stop and search operations that are completely absurd. People are being photographed. People are being pictured by the army staff when they come and go to the favela and with their IDs. So this is ridiculous. They don't do that in the wealthier parts of the city. So this is not just a human rights violation, but this is absolutely absurd and ineffective.
Erick, I will,
won't get any bigger results.
I will have to give you the last word. Unfortunately, we're actually over time for this segment. I'd like to thank all three of my panelists so much for joining us on this edition of The Newsmakers.